My name is Harrison Swells, and this is A Different Direction. This South Korean filmmaker has been writing and directing films since 2000. By combining comedy, tragedy, horror, and every other genre under the sun, you know you're watching one of his films when you don't know if you should laugh or gasp. His seventh and latest feature film, Parasite, was an international success as it won the Oscar for Best Picture last year. Did Parasite show him moving towards convention, or is the mainstream going in a different direction with him? Born in South Korea on September 14, 1969, Bong Joon-ho is a filmmaker who has tapped into his home country. While his films are designed perfectly for pieces of entertainment, South Korea's history can transform a lot of the stories. Let's start by looking at the country that Bong Joon-ho grew up in. At the age of 19, he enrolled in Yonsei University to study sociology. His transition to college coincided with the South Korea democracy movement. Throughout the history, the South Korea government was led by presidents voted on by an electoral college that had no correlation with the general population. On June 10th of 1987, the indirect election of Roh Tae-woo pushed the citizens to their breaking point, as protests were ignited across the country. The nationwide anger against the authoritarian government was diverse from students to churches to the labor movement. Joon-ho was one of those protesters. In an interview with Vulture.com in 2019, he described the tear gas used by the police. It's strange. Sometimes I smell it in my dreams. Usually dreams are images, but I sometimes have these sensations of smelling it. It's really horrible, but I guess that's the way it should be. Those images of tear gas manifested themselves in the monster film, The Host. More on that later. After weeks of civil unrest, the protesters succeeded and a move to democracy was promised by the government. This change in the political landscape affected day-to-day life as well. As censorship started to relax in the late 80s, early 90s, films became more accessible. Bong Joon-ho would leave sociology behind as he helped create a film club on his college campus, and he and his friends would spend nights watching, analyzing, and eventually writing films. By the early 90s, he graduated from Korean Academy of Film Arts with a few short films under his belt. Sadly, it would take until 2000 for Bong Joon-ho to finally direct his first feature film, Barking Dogs Never Bite. It is a jet-black dark comedy as the protagonist of the story is a man driven so insane by yipping dogs that he turns to violence against them. Honestly, it is far from the director's best, but it is interesting to see genesis of Bong Joon-ho's obsession of structure and architecture. The long hallways of Ko Young-ju's apartment complex that stack on top of each other create great anxiety, can even harken back to the Kubrick's Shining as he runs through the halls. Thankfully, the financial disappointment of Barking Dogs Never Bite didn't hold him back for too long. His next two films were blockbusters that took authority down a peg. Memories of Murder is a serial killer drama following two combative detectives that revels in ambiguity. Its financial success would save the production company from bankruptcy. And with this success, Bong Joon-ho made his biggest film of his career so far, The Host. To some, it may feel like a really good monster movie that is grounded with great performances from frequent collaborators like Song Kang-ho and Go Ah-yo-sung. However, when it's viewed through the lens of South Korea's history, the bureaucratic bumbling and cold government officials that let this monster run amok starts to make more sense. With record-setting box office numbers on its opening weekend and overall, Bong Joon-ho's popularity continued to grow. However, it was nothing compared to the phenomenon that was his latest feature film. Parasite was the first Korean film to win the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, and the first non-English-speaking film to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. The award was a historic moment as it showed a promising step towards a more inclusive and representative Oscars. However, this win was not just for diversity's sake. The film more than deserves it. The story centers on an impoverished Kim family who tries to make their living wages by folding pizza boxes. Here is a clip.
그래서 정말 돈 10% 떼고 주겠다는 거예요, 지금?
분량에 비하면 페널티 적은 거지, 안 그래요?
아, 인건비 이거 얼마나 한다고? 아, 너무한 거 아니에요?
아, 이봐요. 이게 그렇게 간단한 문제가 아니야. 이런 불량 박스 하나하나가 얼마나 큰 데미지를 주는 줄 알아요? 우리 브랜드 이미지에?
브랜드. 박스 접을 사람도 하나 없는 것들이, 아?
뭐라고?
사장님, 이게 다 그 친구 때문이죠.
뭔 소리?
그 원래 일하던 알바생 말입니다. 그 친구가 배 찍어 잠수 탔죠. 이 주사랑교에서 이 단체 주문이 막 들어오고 있는 이 중요한 시점에
아니, 그런 디테일은 또 어떻게 다 알아요? 어디서 들었어?
그 친구가 제 동생 지인이에요.
아이, 그 오빠가 원래 좀 이상해요. 이 동네에서 평판이 되게 안 좋은데.
그래서 말입니다, 사장님. 페널티 10% 좋습니다. 그 대신에
대신에?
이참에 알바생 새로 뽑으실 생각 없으세요?
누나, 우리 사람 뽑아야 돼.
원래 알바는 자르세요. 해고 페널티를 주시라고.
내일 정식으로다가 면접 보러 가겠습니다. 몇 시가 좋을지.
아니, 저기 잠깐만. 일단 생각을 좀 해보고.
그러면 저희 박스 돈부터.
In hopes to leave pizza box falling behind, son Kim Ki-woo takes up an offer to tutor the daughter of a very wealthy Park family. One life falls into another, and soon, the family's lives become intertwined in more ways than one. Quite honestly, we could spend this entire segment on all the complexities of Parasite, but we're running out of time, sadly. The best thing I could say is to go to the film as blind as possible and enjoy the twists along the way. If you haven't seen any of Bong Joon-ho's films, start with Parasite. Once you finished it and loved it, move on to his older films, as they are just as worth it. I hope that this has encouraged you to go in a different direction with Bong Joon-ho.